to our needle felted. Oh, gotta get that recording ready. Welcome everybody to our needle felt painting class. Darrin is your teacher there on screen now. Hi, Darrin. Like Felicia said, my name's Claire. I'll be hanging out in the chat with you, and I will answer any questions there that I can or pass them on to Darrin so he can demonstrate for us on screen. He's showing off some of the things he's made there now. I'm also going to go ahead and put the handout in the chat here in case you didn't get that ahead of time. You won't really need it for the class, but you'll have it to refer to afterwards. Yes, Darrin's showing off his very impressive finished projects there. And now that all of that is out of the way, we'll go ahead and let Darrin get started.
All right, welcome to class. Today is needle felting. Needle felting, a painting or like a two-dimensional, like a drawing or a picture. We can also do needle felting and make a three-dimensional sculpture, and that's another class that we teach. So once you learn one, then you can apply everything you learned today if you want to learn to do 3D needle felted sculptures. So let's go ahead and change the view to the view of my hands, and we'll just jump right in and we'll start looking at some of the supplies and tools. Change my view. Okay, so today the yarn that I'm going to be using is Hometown yarn. With my computer closer so the sound stays good. Hometown bonus bundle. And this yarn is by Lion Brand. It's available on lionbrand.com or on michaels.com. And it comes in a wide variety of colors. And I have a bunch of odds and ends and leftovers that I'm going to be using today as well. So you don't need a lot of yardage per se, but it's nice to have lots of different color choices. Along with, you want some yardage, you want enough to do something with. So Hometown bonus bundle is mainly what I'm using today. Also, another very good yarn for this type of project would be Lion Brand Homespun. And the reason that one is such a good yarn is because it's so loosely plied, it's easy to separate the fibers out. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. And I'm going to show you how to use this yarn in a couple of different ways. The first thing I want to talk about is we do need something to work into. So whenever you're needle felting or working with felting needles, you have to have something that's going to receive the needle so that the needle does not break. If you're using these are the needles. And as you're working with these needles and you're pushing it through your fabric, you don't want to push it. You can't do it on a table because the needles have to be able to go through the fabric. And if they hit the table, then they're going to break. So this is a needle felting mat, and you can see it kind of receives the needles and it gives the needles a place to go so that they don't break. So you do need some type of a needle felting mat. This one is by Clover. Another thing you could use is, this is a piece of upholstery foam, and this is perfect. You can see then it receives the needles very easily. The needles don't break. You just need something that the needles can pass through pretty much unrestricted. Otherwise they'll break. So either a piece of foam or the brush. I've heard people say they use styrofoam. I feel like that would fall apart and it would probably make a horrible noise. So, you can certainly try it, but just know you can't use it directly on a tabletop. Any questions about like the needle felting mats or work surfaces? Okay. So let's look at the needles themselves. So these are very special needles. They're not just regular standard needles. If you look really close, see if we can get focused on that. You can see that the needles aren't smooth, that they have kind of either barbs or notches kind of cut there. And you can kind of see it's reflecting there. They're not smooth. So you can't use a standard needle. You need these needle felting needles that have these barbs or notches. And it seems pretty magical. I'm not sure why, but those barbs and notches create the felt. They force the fibers to tangle and twist around each other, and it makes it into a felt, which is very nice. Quite easy to do. It does almost seem magical. It almost seems like you're not really doing anything, but yet you're getting a really great result. So you do need something to work into. You need these needles. Now, this little pen that I'm holding is also by Clover, and it holds 3 needles, which makes it nice. This one holds 5 needles. So this one's nice for working little detailed areas. And then this one is nice for covering like larger spaces to like really work your felt to really make it very secure. So this one will also do that, but this one you can kind of get into detailed areas. And then I have this pen that somebody gave me, and this one just holds 1 needle. So you can either use a pen with, you could put 1 needle in this one as well, or you can just hold 1 needle in your hand and just use 1 needle if you need to get in and do some really good detail work. So something to hold the pens. I think they have these that actually have up to 10 or 12 needles, but I don't have any that have that many. So these are the needle kind of holders or carriers that I have. So any questions at all so far? How are we doing? And it is nice also to have, I have this little just piece of felt that I made. It's nice to have somewhere, if you're going to have loose needles, it's nice to have somewhere to park your needles so you don't lose them. You can even park this one in there just so you don't kind of stick yourself or lose your needle. So it's nice to have a place to park them. So any questions at all, just let me know. Here are a few things that I've made with needle felting, and then we're going to review how to make things. So just this little owl, I made 2 pieces of felt. You sew it together, it makes a little phone case. This is cherry blossoms. This is it's a little birthday card. It's knitted material that I washed and dried and felted. And then I just needle felted these little designs on it. Have a happy day. I mean, you could give it to a little kid. They could look through it. You could put a couple different like pages of felt inside, make a little storybook that kids can't rip up. That it's nice to have in that regard. So you can do almost anything that you can think of. It's a very versatile and very forgiving little art form. And here are 2 little, very simple little pictures that I've done. And then depending on your level of artistic experience or ability, you can make extremely very realistic portraits, drawings, landscapes, whatever you want to do. You can get very, very realistic with this. So depending on to what level you want to take it and what your skill set is, you can really take this to kind of an extreme level and make some very, very beautiful things. And then this sweater, this was just a store-bought sweater that actually had a hole in it. So it had a hole right here. So I put this little skeleton, this little skull to cover the hole. And then I thought, well, that's fine, but now I want to do something on the back. So I put all of these, I just drew them freehand and then just kind of filled them in with the felt. So depending on, what you want it to look like, you can do really amazing things with needle felt. You can do very detailed, you can get very, very realistic looks from that. Okay, any questions? We ready to jump in and get started? Got some things to show you. How are we doing, Claire?
We're doing good. I think this might lead into your first topic. Barb wanted to know, are we using roving or are we using yarn?
So the answer is yes. We are going to be using roving and yarn. I showed you the yarns that we're going to start with, but the thing about roving, so if you have roving, or if you have access to roving, then roving is probably the easiest choice. But I find it's not always
just a
easy.
refresher, Darrin. What is roving?
Okay, so roving is, you can see it prepared in different ways. Roving is basically wool or acrylic or other types of fiber that have been prepared to be spun into yarn, but have not been spun into yarn yet. So it's loosely assembled, unspun fiber that you could at that point, either using a drop spindle or a spinning wheel or a spinning machine, it could be spun into yarn at that point. So that's what roving is. And so it's not twisted, it's not plied, it's just easy to just pull it apart. So if you've ever knitted with a single ply of yarn, that's basically a pencil roving. So it pulls apart really easily. So that's what roving is. And then of course we know what yarn is. And one reason why I like using the yarn that I have here for this type of activity is because it is very easy for me to get this yarn. Roving isn't always available at every local yarn store, so sometimes it's not easy to get. You can order it online, but then of course you have to wait, and it's no fun waiting. But with this yarn, because it's so loosely plied, I can turn this yarn into roving very easily. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then, if you do have access to roving, you can use roving. But if you have lots of little balls of yarn at home that you really don't know what to do with, or little scraps of yarn, then this might help you use up some of those scraps, because you can totally just make this into, you could either spin with it or you could needle felt with it. So I'm just using this little pet brush, and I'm brushing the yarn. And because it's so loosely plied, you can see it just kind of comes apart nice and easy. So cut it into small strips. And this technique that I'm doing right now is called carding, C-A-R-D-I-N-G. And this is a technique that you would normally see people using with wool or linen, but mostly wool that has been taken off a sheep and washed, but it's still pretty tangled, and it's not ready to use. So you brush it like this with these carding brushes to prepare the wool to be spun into yarn. But for our purposes today, we're taking yarn and we're brushing it back to roving. And then you can see now this is basically a roving, and so I can felt with it. What you want to use is a very loosely plied yarn, makes it much easier. So this yarn is, it's the hometown yarn, and it's a beautiful yarn, but because it's plied so many times, you've got all these plies, it's a little harder to brush out into roving. So you could certainly use this, you could certainly brush this back out into roving, but because it's plied so nicely, it's a nice smooth cable ply, it's not going to be as easy. It's going to be a lot more work. But there's another good purpose with smooth yarn like this that we'll talk about as we get going. So we're really using yarn today, but we're taking our yarn and we're brushing it back, or we're carding it back to roving. And then we're going to be able to use these nice fluffy puffs of yarn to create our picture. So what I used, these pet brushes, these are just like from a pet store, so they're pretty cheap, pretty easy to get. If you don't have anything like that and you don't really want to invest in anything like that, then you could just take a comb and just cut it into small pieces and just kind of comb it out. So you can get away with maybe a nylon brush, maybe like a scrub brush that has rough nylon bristles would brush it out for you. But just depending on how much of it you want to use would be, you might do okay with this, or you might need to get something else. If you're really going to get involved in this and you really love it, then eventually you might want to invest in these brushes. These are called carding brushes. These are the official type of brushes. These are kind of small. I have another set that each brush is as big as this. And these work much easier because they're designed for it. And you just brush out this way. But these are not cheap. So you might want to wait until you decide if you're really going to be using them a lot before you get them. And in the meantime, these little pet brushes are quite affordable. They might even have them like at a dollar store or something. So any questions about my choice of yarn versus roving, or how to brush out the yarn and turn it into roving? Any questions at all about that?
What types of fiber are good for this? You've mentioned acrylic and wool, but could you use something like a cotton?
So what I have found is fibers that are softer are actually easier to use. So wool and acrylic work very well for the needle felting. You can use silk and nylon, also work very well. Plant fibers tend to be a little bit too stiff, and the needles don't pass through them as easily. So something like if you wanted to do a design on a denim jacket or a pair of jeans, it might not work because the fibers are so stiff in the denim that the needles are going to really resist, and it might break the needles. It might not work. If you have a really soft, very loosely plied cotton, something like maybe even a cotton ball, something, think of a cotton ball, how soft and fluffy that is. You could probably needle felt with something like that. But if the cotton or linen or hemp or whatever you want to use is very stiff, or if it's been mercerized or treated with any type of a treatment, it's not going to work well. It probably won't work at all. But so you just want to think of fibers that are very soft and kind of fluffy, and something that the needles will be able to pass through. But I always recommend just trying it. If you have something that you want to use and you think it'll be a good idea, go ahead and try it, and you might be able to come up with a way to make it work. So, don't ever be discouraged. It's always worth a try. Because originally I was told you couldn't needle felt with acrylic fiber, and so I just decided to try it, and it actually works very well. So, any other questions?
Yes. Do you have to card the yarn first, or can you just needle felt with the yarn as it's been spun?
Nope, you can just needle felt with the yarn as it's been spun, or you can brush it out. The benefit of brushing it out is you will be able to get more of a blended look, whereas if you use it as it is already spun, that's one way you can get these like nice straight lines that need to be more of a crisp line. But if you want to try to get it blended out to look a little bit more painterly, then you might want to brush it to achieve that look. So it just really depends on the look and the technique that you want. Anything else?
I think we are ready to start stabbing.
So I did want to show you a little bit just about blending. So I've got blue and white. And so you can blend these together and make either like, this might turn light blue or it might turn a little gray, depending on the shades of blue that you're using. And there's a little bit of red in there too. But if you keep mixing them, then you can get a nice blended color. And so that's another benefit of using brushing it out, because you can blend, if you only have a couple of colors, you can blend it out to make different shades. So like I've got different shades of blue now because I was able to blend it. So it's nice to have these, sometimes they're called blending brushes and sometimes they're called carding brushes. So either way is fine, okay? All right, so let's get started. So what you want to work into, you can work into any type of, and again, I would either use wool or acrylic or something very soft. This is it's a piece of an old sweater that I washed and dried it and turned it into felt. And this is what I'm going to use to demonstrate on today. But if you have a piece of craft felt, something like that, that'll also work very nicely. So, but I always just try to use up scraps or different things that I have at home around the house first. Right. So to start with the picture, a sunset is very kind of a nice beginner project because there are no, you don't really have to worry about proportions. You don't have to worry about, color so much. So let's just go ahead and so you kind of want to just spread some of your roving out on your surface. And then you're just working it in. Now you do want to be very careful about your fingers. I've stabbed my fingers many times by doing this, and it doesn't feel good. It does hurt quite a bit. So I don't recommend this as a craft for young children, especially really small children with really small fingers, because these needles, I feel like, could do a lot of damage to small fingers. So you might want to consider that if you're thinking about doing this with children, just making sure that they're old enough to be really careful. It's so easy to just stab your finger. I've done it so many times. I actually stabbed it through the fatty part of my thumb here one time, and then you have to pull it back out. And these barbs, they do really hurt. So you just want to be extra careful when you're working with this. And so you kind of go over it and start to get things attached. And if you want to like have clouds or any kind of movement like back and forth, you can use the needles and kind of comb at or brush at your fibers to kind of get them so that they're going a certain direction.
A couple questions on the sort of material for your base. Barb wanted to know if you could felt into linen, and I thought that probably a loosely woven linen would work.
I would try a small piece. I'm going to say it's probably not going to be your best choice, again, because the needles really don't like going through plant fibers as much. So, go ahead and try it. But if you find that it's resisting or it's not, it should be a very pleasant experience. If it feels like it's resisting, I would try a piece of felt to start with, and then try to branch out to some of the other things, if possible.
And when you say felt, are you talking about like those little sheets of craft felt you can get, or like a thicker sort of commercial wool felt fabric?
No, just a piece of like the craft felt that you can get at like any craft store. They should be like 75 cents or 50 cents. If you want to do a larger picture, then you could go buy, some yardage of felt, but it doesn't have to be thick, felt. It should, be pretty soft and pliable. Okay, so that's starting to get attached. And then you can just start by, so like a sunset could have purple, it could have yellow, it could have orange. And so I'm just going to kind of spread this out. And I'm not really trying to control it. I'm just trying to kind of see how it's going to go on its own. So you don't really, as you're practicing and just kind of getting the hang of it, just kind of go with it and see how it works. And then as you, develop your skill, you can develop more control. So almost stuck myself there. Let's see. And then you can kind of drag, kind of use this as kind of a brushing technique to get the fibers to go the way you want them to go. And it's pretty simple. So this technique is actually it's quite new. From the research that I could find, people have only been really doing this since the 80s. There have been felting machines for a long time, but for some reason, nobody ever took the needles out of the felting machines and started working with them by hand like this. So it's actually a fairly new, if you think about knitting and crochet and how old they are in weaving, needle felting is actually quite a new technique. So maybe you've never even heard of it, or maybe you've never tried it before, but it is, it's a lot of fun. And one thing you do want to remember, when you enter whatever you're working on, you can enter at an angle, you can enter straight up and down at any degree angle that you want. But when you enter, you have to exit at the same angle. If you enter and then you readjust, then that's one way you can really break your needles. So when you enter your fiber, come back out at the same angle. And then you can change it. You can constantly change it, but when you put it in the fiber, you don't want to readjust because that will break your needles. That's one cautionary tale. And sometimes you'll break all 3 needles at once. Sometimes you only break one. So you try, and they're not super cheap. Let me show you how to replace the needle. So if you do break them. So this pen, it screws apart. And then you just pop the needles. You can put 1, 2, or 3 in. And you just pop the needles, and there's a little notch kind of where each needle will rest. It kind of holds it into place. And then you just screw it back together. And then the same thing with this one. It screws apart. And it has this, it looks like a dime, but it's just a metal disc. And with this one, there are holes, and you just drop them in, and they just kind of sit in there and on their own. You put this back on and screw it down. And that's how you change the needles. So if you break the needles, it's actually pretty easy to change them. Right, so then you can just readjust your placement of your cloth. And one thing about a sky, if you look at the sky, it tends to get a little bit lighter the closer you get to the horizon. So you can start adding a little bit lighter, kind of towards the bottom. And I'm going to kind of layer in some red in with this white. Kind of blend out the clouds a little bit. And I'm just working really fast to kind of show you, and you can fuss over this as much as you need to, or just kind of take your time with it. But you can see it's just by laying the fiber out in layers and working it, it starts to blend. And maybe there's some dark blue showing through. But I like to build it up in layers of different layers of fiber. I think it gives it a nice look. Any questions or ideas? Anything at all?
Slightly unrelated question from Darlene, but she's obviously taken some classes with you before, mentioning that you do weaving and crochet and knitting. Do you have a favorite craft to do with yarn?
Not really. It's whatever I'm working on at the moment. It's usually my favorite. I switch. I think it's my ADD coming out. I just constantly circle back around to different interests and hobbies. So how can you pick just one?
Exactly. And now that you've got more than one, you have more reason to buy yarn and use up your stash.
You never use up your stash though. I always seem to buy more yarn than I actually use. Is that just me, or is that a thing?
Oh, I think it's definitely a thing. Yes, you find that perfect project to use up your scraps, but oh no, you need a main color, so you got to buy some more yarn.
Yep, exactly. There's always more reason to buy more yarn. No matter what anyone tells you.
Barb wants to know, can you add as many layers as you want until it just starts getting tough to felt into?
You can add as many layers as you want. And it's basically not going to get tough to felt into. I mean, it really probably won't. It could get dense enough to where you start to notice it, but the more layers you put on, then the thicker it's going to be. And you could actually build up, say you have a flat painting that's more two-dimensional, but you could build up like little areas off of it. Like you could make something a little bit more 3D coming up out of it. If you build up a lot, like you could do, maybe flowers or a bird or something that's partially 3D coming off of it. So that could be fun. But yeah, you can pretty much just do as many layers as you want. I mean, that's what we do when we make three-dimensional sculptures. We just keep adding layers and layers, and it doesn't really get hard to work into, but it does get more dense as you go. Okay, anything else? Has anyone else done this before, or is this just completely new? And you can see I'm just adding just color as however I decide I feel like I need it to just kind of fill in the space. I think that's pretty already. I think it kind of looks like a sunset even just at this.
A very fiery sunset, yes.
I guess I'm feeling fiery today. I don't know. Let's do some.
Oh, it is hot and summery here, so.
Yeah, you can always, and let's just say, oh, I didn't realize I was making it so red. You know, you can always add, you know, some other colors right over top of it. And that's one thing I do love about needle felting. So it's not like watercolors. If you're painting with watercolors and say you paint something red with watercolors and then you want to go over it with blue, it's not really going to work. It's going to kind of make your painting kind of muddy and blend the colors. But with something like this, if you layer the fibers thinly, then you can get a good, nice blending. But if you lay thick pieces of fiber over top of it, you can completely cover it over. Like I can completely cover this red sky with the navy blue or even with white. And it would, see if let's just say you want a nice big white cloud right here over all these dark colors. You know, you can just add it. It almost looks like spider webs. It's kind of cool. You want spider webs in your sunset? So you can like layer dark colors and light colors. And it's very forgiving. And if you don't overwork it, if you keep everything like really light and you can decide like, oh, I really didn't want white there, you can pick it off. And maybe if you don't have a lot of white, you can save that and use it somewhere else. So, you know, you can pull things off as you're working on it, but once you really attach it, then it's pretty permanent. So, you know, you can kind of lightly go over it. Because what happens is it's forcing the fibers through your base material and they're becoming tangled and they all incorporate together and it's basically forming one solid piece of fabric. So even though we're like putting layers on and layers, what we're doing with the felting is we're incorporating it together and making it all one piece of fabric. So, and just remember, every time you push your needle through, you're moving fiber. So if you push your needle through, you've moved fiber one direction. And when you pull it out, you're moving it again. So just think about that. Any questions at all?
Question on how you get the fine details like that fence post in one of your examples.
Okay. So let's switch to this, the magic of television, right? Well, this way, it's a different drawing, so we're not really going to get, let me pick up better. Do this. All right, so for really fine details, one thing you can do is use yarn that is not, that you're not going to brush out into roving. So you can just kind of attach it. And as you use this yarn, it's going to be pulled into the fiber, is going to be pulled into your picture. So you want to kind of, you see, I'm using it, I'm working here, but I'm allowing it to move towards the spot that I'm working because it's actually going to become incorporated into my drawing. Like you wouldn't want to attach it all down and get it just the way you want it, like that, and then try to work it because you're going to need a little bit of extra slack in it. So that's one way you can do a straight line. Or you can, if you want a real nice crisp line, you can twist it as you go. And this is how you could make the fence posts. Or if you're doing a picture of a face, you could outline the eyes or the lips like this. If you
Sorry,
wanted,
Darrin, we're losing your audio.
sorry. If you wanted to write something, you could, write happy birthday or something by doing it this way. Any questions about how to do that? And if you keep it twisted, you get a nice crisp. See, when I was not twisting it, I kind of get this more kind of a fluffier line. But if you keep that twist in it and kind of twist it as you go, you can keep a nice crisper line. And again, once you work it really well, it becomes permanent. But say you changed your mind, you can take it off pretty easy. So it's all very forgiving. But once you set it, once you're sure and you kind of set it for permanent, then you're kind of done. Okay. So to make the sun, I've kind of made this big kind of background. Kind of make the sun, use some white to make the sun kind of look like a realistic look to it. And then you can use these needles to kind of direct, if you want to make it into a circle, you can use this to kind of help shape it into a circle.
Ooh, good question. I don't think we've had before. Tegan wants to know, what about using stencils for lettering?
Yeah, you certainly could. If you just want to be careful if you're actually trying to needle felt around the stencil. If your needles hit like a hard plastic stencil or even cardboard, it might break your needles. So you might want to kind of transfer, like use the stencil and kind of draw on maybe with a chalk pen or something temporary, and then fill it in after. You might want to be careful about, you don't want to break your needles. But if you can just get in there with the stencil and not break your needles, it could actually work out really well. So just kind of drag some yellow over it. Maybe let's do a little purpley blue over it to kind of make it look a little. And then if you kind of scrape it or kind of brush at it. And then if you want to start to create the silhouette or the illusion of like bushes or trees or something in front of it, you can use black, which is always nice for a silhouette. You can also use like navy blue or even some of that purple to kind of give the look of a silhouette. And you can just kind of twist it like this, and it kind of gives the illusion of maybe a pine tree, or just some kind of a.
I feel like this is very much the Bob Ross version of fiber arts.
Yes, you just let's put a happy little tree. Is he the one that said happy little trees?
Yes, that's him.
Put a happy little tree. I mean, I know I have curly hair, but come on, it's not quite that curly, is it? See, you don't have to put much detail in it, and it's kind of surrealistic or maybe an impressionistic look. Like these three are all the same size, so I might want to make them look a little different so that they they don't look too planned out. And then you could maybe do a something. And if you want to get like more like precise, so like for the branches, so just kind of attach this down. You can see how I'm twisting. I'm twisting this roving kind of back. And then so you can see how that could turn, I'm turning that into a tree branch. And you just reposition your workspace. If you have a nice big piece of upholstery foam, it's very nice, but these little work areas work pretty well too. So just kind of take, see, here's some that didn't get brushed out very well. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as a branch. And so tree branches usually get very small and pointy and more like twigs as they get closer to the ends. So they always kind of get thicker the closer you get to the trunk. I mean, usually. So maybe it's going to have a branch go up this way. And you can plan this all out and draw it out and be very precise on how you want it to look, or you can just kind of do what I'm doing and just kind of do it however you feel at the moment.
And I mean, this seems to be going very quickly, Darrin, but like those two pieces you showed at the beginning, how long did it take you to finish those, like start to finish?
Not as long as you, probably a couple of hours. But the main way that, because I just kind of let it do what it wants as I'm going. So if something happens, maybe that I wasn't thinking about, like didn't really think about putting this white little in with this black, but now that it's happened, I kind of like it. So instead of taking it off and ripping it out, I just kind of leave things and work with what it is. But something like this, just a couple of hours because it's pretty simple. You just want to try to get, your sunset all done first. Put the sun, you can either use yellow or white or just different shades of, and then bring some clouds over it. And then, these tree branches here are really very simple. I didn't do much to them. It's just really an illusion of trees. And like, this is just kind of some kind of growth, some kind of like, plant life growing. Like you don't have to you can keep it pretty abstract. This one, it's a little bit more detailed. Has a little bit more of perspective. So if you have a little bit of drawing experience, just remember, as things get farther away, they get smaller. They tend to get closer together, like the fence posts start spread out, and as they get back towards the house, there's much shorter, and they get closer together. The same with the road, how it, kind of narrows back. Just basic, simple perspective, and then just a little bit of, this, just some different colors. This gray coming down kind of gives the illusion that maybe this mountain is further in the background, and then this grass is closer. And then, like I said, if you have experience, if you have a lot of experience painting, if you're an artist, you can really make very, very detailed pieces of art that are actually very, very realistic and very beautiful. Or maybe you could do like a Picasso or like a Van Gogh or something that's not as mirror image of something realistic, but still would give you some really great detail and really good look. So, but depending on how big of a piece, a couple of hours, 3-4 hours, maybe a couple of evenings before. And your first time you do it, it might not turn out as well as you want, but we do have to give ourselves time to learn and practice. So just don't get discouraged.
And you could also certainly use this technique to do more like geometric designs as well, for someone who's not as super artistically inclined, just do like various abstract shapes and things. And I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that is really cool. So as you, like this one, somebody did this for me, and it's just a very simple spiral. And on the sweater that I made, it looks very detailed, and like some of it is, but a lot of what gives it, it's fun, are just like this. That's just a spiral. I just put fiber down and just felted it down. I wasn't even fussing over it. And then I just did this spiral, this little curly Q, and with the green, and then I decided to outline it with this yellow. And so this green and this yellow were just yarn. You can still kind of see, how they were plied. And that just, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of artistic expression, but just something like this on a patch, you could make something like this and then sew it onto a sweater or a bag or something and like use it as a patch. And then even just like these hearts, you could use a stencil and draw the heart and then just kind of fill it in and make really nice, like really fun designs. So it can be very simple. And then when you group all these designs together, then it looks more interesting. So just like these are just circles, they're just circles. That's just a half circle, but yet it adds interest and makes it fun. So you don't have to, you can keep things you can combine it and kind of keep things very simple and add some things that are a little bit more complex and, just kind of let your creativity go crazy.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes left here. We've got some questions on finishing and storage and display and things. So for the flat painting sort of things like that, do you frame them? And if you frame it, do you recommend putting it under glass?
I wouldn't probably put it under glass. You might want to, depending on, you can put it under the glass and see how it looks, but I feel like the glass might flatten it. But the glass would also keep it clean. So, try it under glass. The ones I've seen framed were not under glass. Like an acrylic painting on oil painting, you don't usually put under glass. So, it could go either way. You could just frame it in just a nice frame and just put it on your desk or hang it on the wall. You could, like I said before, like kind of use this as a patch, and you could sew this on the back of a jacket or on a sweater. You could sew it onto a pillow to add, interest or decoration. For cleaning it though, you need to be careful. If you are using acrylic, it's going to be a little bit easier to clean, but I would probably just spot clean it and maybe have it dry cleaned if it actually got dirty. But stuff like this, you don't really use it as much, so it's probably not going to get so dirty. What do you think, Claire? How would you clean it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just like hanging on the wall, you're probably not going to take it off the wall and wash it really.
You could vacuum it in that case. You might want to just, vacuum it.
Yeah. And then for your cardigan there, oh, wait, sorry, before I go to there, Edie has a good tip. If you did want to frame it with a glass, you could get like a shadow box that's a little bit thicker or deeper.
That would be
then
nice.
The glass isn't pressed right on it.
Or maybe use a mat.
Yeah. A couple questions on your cardigan there. Barb wanted to know, did you put any sort of backing onto that? And then we had a couple questions on whether that can be washed or not.
I didn't put a backing on it. I just worked directly into the wool, the knitted wool. You could if you really wanted to, but again, I would make sure the backing is something that the needles are going to go through easily. Like those cotton, like those interfacings that you can iron on and different things. I don't think that would be pleasant to work through. So just kind of double check with a small area and see how you're liking it before you decide to use a backing on a whole big piece like that. I really never wear that sweater. It's kind of loud and graphic, and I tend to wear just more plain stuff. So I've never washed it. I've only ever probably worn it like 2 or 3 times. But if I were going to wash it, I would probably either dry clean it or like spot clean it. But if it really needed a good wash, I would probably just put it in the tub and let it soak, and then kind of rinse it out very gently, like the way you might wash a cashmere sweater, and then just kind of be prepared if you do wash it or scrub at it. If any of the fibers come loose, then you can just go over it with your needles again and kind of like reattach. Like you might have to go back and kind of reattach or just double check, but it should be fine. Don't you think it would be a good way to wash it, Clara? How would you wash a sweater like that?
Yeah, I would probably do, do it sort of like I wash all my head knit sweaters, just like soak it, gently wring the water out, lay it in a towel and roll it up, and then stand on it a few times to squish the water out and lay it flat
Yes.
to dry. Yeah.
But you certainly wouldn't want to like scrub it, like if you get a
No.
stain on it.
Mm.
If you get a stain on it, like say you spilled coffee on it and you wash it and it's clean, now it's, it's clean, but the stain is still there. Once it's actually clean, you could just like needle felt right over the stain. So, wash it and do your best. And if you can't get the stain out, you could needle felt right over it. So that could be something, a clean. What other questions do we have, Claire?
I think we have covered most of them here.
They do. People feel like they're going to be able to make projects. I always like people to feel empowered that they can just jump right in.
I think I've seen a couple people felting along with us, so hopefully they'll have something to show for all their class time.
And it does take practice. So you'll be patient with yourself and give yourself time to learn.
Oh, question actually for me on the edges there. So I see like, especially on the other edge where there's a lot of extra fibers just like hanging off the side. Would you felt those into place or would you just cut those off?
I would probably just, after I'm finished, I would just cut them off. You could just felt them into place, but you could cut them off. The one thing, like you might start out with, especially if you buy a piece of felt, you might start out with a perfectly rectangular piece of felt with nice right angles and perfectly straight edges. But as you're working into it, remember you're forcing fibers into that felt and it might cause it to kind of splay out a little bit. So you're going to be changing the shape and you might be distorting it. So by the time your piece is finished, it might not be rectangular anymore. It might be kind of really odd shaped. So what you can do at that point then is just go, once you're finished, maybe mark it off with a ruler and you can cut it along the edges to like re-square it up to make it have nice right angles. And sometimes, depending on if you've worked a lot in one area, you can actually kind of get buckles or puckers in it and you can iron it. If you're using acrylic, though, you want to be very careful that you don't melt it, but you could turn it on the back, put like a t-shirt on it or a piece of like a thin piece of cloth, and then press it to get it to lay flat. And that's similar to how you would block something. But check on your iron and see what the settings are. And so if you've used acrylic, then you have to use the setting for like acrylic or polyester. If you've used wool, then you can use the setting for wool and you can use steam. But just keep in mind acrylic can melt, so don't get it too hot. But sometimes that will give it a nice finish if you press it and then go ahead and square it up, and then you can either frame it or use it however you wanted to use it.
And a question on the needles. Are there different sizes or different types of felting needles?
There are all kinds, very, very coarse ones and very, very fine ones, but I always just use the heavy ones. I would love to talk to some other fiber artists and find out what, because a lot of people really like the thinner ones, the more fine ones. But I find when I use the fine ones, I'm just like using it, you just have to use it more often to get the same result. Like you might have to push it 10 times to get the result that you would, using this one like 4 times. But I don't see any difference in the result. Sometimes when I'm using these coarse needles, you do see like right here, you can see holes or like dimples that the needles are leaving behind. And I always think, oh, I'll just go back when I'm finished with some steam and that'll kind of sort out any problems. But by the time I'm finished, they all just kind of like go away and fill in. So it doesn't really seem to be for me, necessary to have the different size needles, but they do make them. And if you try them, maybe you'll like the finer needles better. But I just feel like this nice heavy coarse needle is my favorite. So what do you think, Claire? Have you used the other kind?
I'm trying to think which ones I've used. I think I probably tend to stick with the heavy needles as well, just because they're a little bit harder to break.
Yeah, maybe that too. I didn't realize that, but yeah, I just feel like I get so much more done so much more quickly with the heavy needles, and I don't see the benefit of and I'm going to say that, and I'm perfectly willing for somebody to tell me what the benefit is, and I'll always I love to learn new things and change my mind. So um, I would not fight about it.
And the Clover needles that you're using, they come in just basically two weights, right? It's heavy or fine.
Yeah, that's the only weights that I've seen from Clover are just heavy and fine. But I have bought, I bought a long time ago, I bought a kit, and it had like 10 different needle sizes in it. It had like one of each size, and there were 8 or 10. And I only ever used like the most coarse, like 3 or 4. And then the rest of them were so fine that I felt like they weren't any use to me at all. So I do prefer the more coarse ones.
And real quick before we run out of time here, what does the back of that piece look like?
So what you want it to look like, you do want to see all of this. You can see all of the fiber that I've been working on the front is being pushed through the back. So the back is very fuzzy. So you want it to look like that because that's what is, it's incorporating into the fiber and tangling together. And that's kind of what makes it into a kind of solid piece of felt that's going to be more permanent. So, and so you can kind of see like there's the tree and there's the sun, but yep, that's what you want it to look like on the back. And I wouldn't recommend necessarily, like if you have long pieces like this, you might want to be able to trim some of them off, but I probably wouldn't trim it at all. I would leave it. Here's my sweater. Look at the inside of that. See, like that's that fuzzy. Like I don't trim off the fuzz. And over time, it kind of mats down. But this I added, pretty recently. I always like to go back and kind of add things on. So that one's still very fuzzy. But these bits that have been on here for a long time, the fuzz kind of mats together over time. But you can still see kind of you can tell what it is still from it's kind of scary, that side. I think it's kind of spooky. Anything else? Anything at all? I welcome questions.
I'll remind everybody that we did record this class and that'll be posted on the Michael's YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. So you can come back and watch it as many times as you need to. I think I did make a mistake in the beginning of the class and I confused this with our other needle felting class. So there isn't a formal handout for this class, but you'll have the video to watch again and again for a refresher. And if you are interested in taking other classes with us, next Monday we have our crewel embroidery class. That's another yarn crafting class, and that's crewel as in CREWEL. We're not going to be mean to you.
No.
And then we have, for the crocheters in our audience, we have a class on shaping and seaming on August 22nd. And that's a premium class. We'll guide you through how to make a heart-shaped pillow. And then we've got some other fiber arts classes coming up for September into October, and those will be posted soon.
Yeah, we try to include knitting, crocheting, and then we try to include other fiber arts that are, completely unrelated so that everybody can have a chance to learn something new. So if you do come up with any questions after sometimes once you start practicing, that's when the questions will arise. So you can always contact me on my social media. On Facebook, you can send me a direct message. It's just my name and you'll see my picture. On Instagram, maybe Claire will put it in the chat. It's Mr. Woolly Bear, Mister, spelled out Woolly Bear. And feel free to send me a direct message with any questions or if you need any information, and I can get back to you usually pretty quick. And if you make something, I'd love to see what you make, so you can tag me in it. It'd be really nice, kind of cool to see what you come up with. So anything else before we take off, Claire?
I think it sounds like a lot of people are going to give this a try, and I'm excited for that. I've been inspired too.
Yeah, it is. It's really a lot of fun, and it works up pretty fast, really. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Have a good night. Don't forget to practice. It takes a lot of practice, but you'll get it.